We tend to think of our great cities as, well, permanent, like these giant monuments to everything we've built. But what if they're not? In this explainer, we're going to look at why some of the world's most famous cities are actually fighting for their future, and a lot sooner than you'd think.
That's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? The idea that a massive city, home to millions of people, could just have a shelf life. But this isn't some abstract concept. For a bunch of cities around the world, this is becoming a very real, very scary possibility.
And the clock is ticking faster than you might think. We all hear the year 2050 thrown around, and it sounds like it's ages away, right? But for scientists, that's practically tomorrow. It's this critical point on the calendar where a lot of climate models say certain changes could be locked in for good.
Now, let's be clear. What we're talking about here isn't some sci-fi movie plot. It's what happens when a few powerful forces all collide, a really dangerous mix of environmental stress and, frankly, our own human decisions, which are putting our cities right in the crosshairs.
Okay, so the first big threat, and probably the one that's easiest to picture, is coming from the outside. For coastal cities all over the world, the ocean isn't just a pretty view anymore. It's becoming a genuine threat to their existence. So what exactly is sea level rise? It's actually pretty simple. As our planet gets warmer, two big things happen. First, the ocean water itself actually expands. It takes up more space. And second, all that ice from glaciers and ice sheets starts to melt, dumping a massive amount of water into the sea. Put those two together, and the water level just keeps creeping up.
And this isn't just happening in one or two places. We're talking about cities all over the globe. From Jakarta to Miami to the historic canals of Venice, communities everywhere are staring down the barrel of this slow-moving disaster. Millions upon millions of people are living on land that could literally be underwater in just a few decades. And that brings us to something that's both deeply ironic and just as dangerous. While some cities are fighting off way too much water, a whole bunch of others are facing a future with nowhere near enough.
And this is threat number 2. Serious water scarcity. The absolute lifeblood of any city is fresh water. And for a lot of them, the taps are getting dangerously close to running dry.
Just think about this for a second. We go from just assuming water will always be there to the terrifying idea of day zero. That's the actual term they used in Cape Town, South Africa, when the city was days away from having to completely turn off the water for millions of people. It was a massive wake-up call for what happens when a modern city runs out of water.
So you see, this isn't just one thing. It's a whole mess of factors. Of course, you've got climate change causing these longer, nastier droughts. But on top of that, you have massive cities using way too much water. You have pollution ruining the sources we do have. And a lot of the time, just plain bad management of a resource we can't live without.
And Mexico City is just this perfect, mind-bending example of how strange this gets. So this city was originally built on an island in the middle of a lake. Today, it's this huge megacity that gets these massive floods every rainy season, and yet it's also running out of water. Why? Because it's draining its underground aquifers, these, natural underground water reservoirs, way faster than the rain can ever fill them back up.
All right, let's move on to our third threat. This one is a bit of a silent killer. It's harder to see, but it takes those other two problems, rising seas and water shortages, and makes them 100 times worse. We're talking about the ground literally vanishing from underneath cities.
It's called land subsidence. Here's an easy way to think about it. Imagine the ground under a city is like a big, wet sponge. Now, if you keep sucking all the water out of that sponge to supply the city, what happens? The sponge dries up, it gets compressed, and the whole surface just sinks.
It's almost like a recipe for disaster, right? Step 1, you build a huge city on soft, marshy ground. Step 2, you pump out insane amounts of groundwater from underneath to keep the city going. Step 3, you watch as the ground literally deflates and sinks. And then the final blow, you add rising sea levels, pushing in from the coast.
25 centimeters. Just let that sink in for a second. That's nearly 10 inches. In a single year. That is how fast parts of Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, are sinking into the ground. It's the fastest sinking city on the entire planet because of this exact process. And this is the real kicker. These things aren't happening separately. They're all connected. The desperate search for water makes them pump more, which makes the city sink faster, which makes it even more vulnerable to floods from the rising sea. It's a vicious cycle. A death spiral, really.
So when you pull all these threads together, you see the real picture. Our city's futures are built on fault lines.
Not the kind that cause earthquakes, but environmental ones, where the pressure from all these threats is building and building, and something has to give. This really puts it all into sharp focus. Just look, you have Jakarta getting hit with the 1-2 punch of sinking land and rising seas. That's over 10 million people. Then Cape Town, which almost hit that day zero, putting its 4.6 million residents on the edge. And then there's Mexico City, a monster city of over 22 million people fighting a war on two fronts. Not enough water and sinking ground.
And if there's one thing to remember from all this, it's this. The real danger isn't just one of these things. It's how they're all slamming into each other at the same time. The rising tides, the empty wells, the sinking ground. It's not 3 separate storms. It's one perfect storm.
And that leaves us with a really big, kind of haunting question. We build our cities to last forever, as symbols of who we are. But as we look towards 2050, we have to seriously ask ourselves, are we actually building the great monuments of the future? Or are we just building tomorrow's ruins?